Good day and welcome America and beyond. I'm Tom Donahue for Truth Matters and Tom Donahue Reports, broadcasting from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the cradle of liberty. So glad you can be with us this week and hopefully all weeks forthcoming. Okay, let's get right to it. A new poll finds a majority of Americans are unsure if assassination attempts on Trump's life were real. So The Independent, Yahoo News, NPR, and various other publications covered this poll. But in this poll, it found that a quarter of Americans, right around 25%, think that the assassination attempt at the White House Correspondents' Dinner was staged, and a third are unsure. So you start stacking those two numbers up, and yeah, it's a majority that are saying, hey, I'm not quite sure about this. And they said they felt the same way about Butler, Pennsylvania. And we know that right after the assassination attempt Correspondents' Dinner, that the number one trending social media term was staged. So the skepticism and cynicism is rising in America. And so we don't know what reality is versus what is fake. And Trump's contributed to this because he claims anything that he doesn't like, anything that paints him in an unfavorable light is fake, it's phony. So we're living in a culture now, and in particular with social media, and with the fact that the standard established media has been caught lying, faking, defrauding America, and the partisan media, so it's really become manipulated media, unless you do your own homework and research, and even then you don't know for sure if you've arrived upon the truth. So that's one of the reasons that when I brought this weekly program back to the airwaves, rather than just calling it Tom Donahue Reports, I've really felt strongly about trying to aim and to try to delve deeper to find the facts and the truth to the best of our ability. So that's what we try to do here. So this is very interesting, some of the data that came out of this poll, and it's a NewsGuard YouGov poll. They do a lot of polling, and I'm sure that if other companies do their polling, they're going to arrive at similar results. Now, if you looked at polling data as it relates to Charlie Kirk's assassination, not just an attempt, an assassination, public execution, you will see numbers probably higher. And of course, it's much higher for RFK and JFK and MLK. So the poll surveyed 1,000 Americans, and they were given the option, as it relates to these assassination attempts, whether they would state true, false, or not sure. And they were asked whether each of the incidents were staged, and a majority of the respondents said they thought each event was either staged or said they were unsure. So a plurality, roughly 45%, said it was a real attempt. So you've got 55% that are saying it was either staged, fake, or unsure. So when you have the majority, they're saying, I don't know if that was a real event, and that so many have their doubts and they believe it was, faked. It was staged. Wow. So that's the country we live in now. That's the world we live in. Now, I didn't watch this, but apparently in this article, and I guess it's being quoted in the other publications as well, that during an interview with 60 Minutes, Trump dismissed claims that the incident was staged. And this is what Trump was quoted as saying, I think they're more sick than they are con people, Trump said, alluding to individuals pushing such conspiracy theories, but there's a lot of con in there too. Now, wait a minute. Isn't Trump kind of the king of conspiracy theories? I mean, if you go back to any of his rallies, and even sometimes as president, right from the podium, or through interviews, he talks about a lot of fake and phony and fraudulent theories. And some of them are actual legit conspiracy theories. So it's kind of funny that Trump, who was kind of a master of touting and concocting conspiracy theories, is now denouncing those. So it's just so hilarious. It's like Trump was calling everything fake, And now other people, they're not allowed to say that they think this is fake or phony or staged. Well, get used to it, Trump, because you're getting a taste of your own medicine, whether you like it or you don't. So I wonder if this study or other studies point to which of the assassination attempts, because the one at the golf course there were no shots fired. So we're going to put that one aside, okay? Because the other two, it affected more people and there was more to go on. But I would even think that one probably be put in the fake and stage category as well. But I'd really like to see more of the comparison between Butler and the White House Correspondents' Dinner as to which is the higher percentage that think that the events are fake. Because remember, right before this White House Correspondents' Dinner, I did cover in this show, and you can go back to the podcast on that, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and there were others that were starting to question the authenticity, the legitimacy, whether Butler, Pennsylvania truly was a real event or was it staged. And then I gave you that theory about the blading and some other things that I said that could be pondered, but, I'm not saying it was probable. But nevertheless, it was just kind of odd that that people started doing more and more questioning right before this event. So I'm not saying there was a correlation, but I just thought that I'm covering this, and then boom, another attempted assassination event occurs. Real or imagined, or I should say, real or staged. And then I'd like to see the numbers in comparison to Charlie Kirk's public execution, not just an attempt, but, they took out a guy that was highly influential. And I've covered that to some extent. We do know that Candace Owens and Jimmy Dore and various others that are, I would call them internet or podcast sleuths that are really digging deep. And I'm seeing podcasters on the left and YouTubers on the left and the right are trying to get to the bottom of what happened to Charlie Kirk and the mysterious surroundings, the mysterious circumstances in those surroundings, and how everything was, in my view, mishandled. And when I was talking about Dan Bongino, I'm just thinking, how could Dan have betrayed Charlie Kirk and not worked harder and dug deeper on any and all leads and connections as it related to what really happened to Charlie Kirk? We now know that Kash Patel is, so far gone in terms of his drinking and partying and carousing and just, he is just, almost like a juvenile delinquent. And, it's truly a dereliction of duty. And I think it's only a matter of time before he's gone, because when you're doing those kind of amazing parodies on Saturday Night Live, Trump knows about those things, and he doesn't like that kind of embarrassment, okay? And it doesn't take, it's only a matter of time. Well, I want to zero in on Trump because this is, to me, deeply disturbing. And I'm not the only one that's covering this, and thankfully so. So MAGA religious leaders on Mother's Day dedicate and bless a 22-foot golden Trump statue. And then Trump calls and thanks the great American patriots behind this golden statue. Now, remember the golden calf in the Old Testament? And the fact is that I've always had issues with the Catholic Church with all their statues and their monuments and, a lot of these, I call them idols, in the worship of these, in these ornaments and these, I think it's just over the top. But I want to focus more narrowly on Trump here, because we know that he wants everything named after him. He's got golden arches and he's wanting to essentially remake everything in his image. And then, of course, he's doing these crazy memes, with him looking like and pretending to be an imposter Christ. Of course, he denies it, but it's so clearly obvious. How can religious leaders tolerate and then praise this kind of behavior, reward this kind of behavior, this to another level, instead of just saying, okay, I'm tolerating Trump because I believe in his policy, I believe he's the better option. They're now building statues. Trump wants Mount Rushmore. Well, good luck with that. That's never going to happen. I mean, Trump's going to be a Hall of Shamer rather than a Hall of Famer. And he's already ranking at or near the bottom of presidents in history. At one time, he was ranking fairly high. MAGA helped boost that and all in popularity and some of the failures of past presidents. But it's going to come a time where he's going to be looked upon in history as just wretched. He's tarnished any good that he did and any goodwill he built up in the first term, even though there were botches and mistakes. But yeah, this idol worship, and that's what it is. Trump has become, the golden calf, and he wants to be, it's not just his cabinet. He wants people to bow down. He likes the fact that these authoritarian figures, these strong men, like Putin, he praises them because he wants that power like they have. Trump wants absolute power. And you can see what this term and this administration is doing, exacting revenge and going after. Remember it was all about being quelled in terms of free speech and social media, and Trump was also a victim of that. And now it's being reversed, where a comedian can't just say the things they want to say. You can't freely write a story that, even though it's heavily documented. Yes, you could, if you want to, as a private citizen or someone is mentioned in that story and you think there's libel, and of course, if things are said and you think it's slander, then you have legal rights, even as president, of course. But to silence dissent and to be doing more harm for freedom of speech and the rights to speak up and speak out than Biden or Obama or Clinton is shameful. So they're the two topics I want to zero in on, focus upon in this opening segment. The statues as it relates to the worship of Trump and this Messiah-like political figure. And many of these religious people were saying that, and he says it too, that he's been persecuted more than Christ. And there's constant comparisons to Christ, and there is no comparison, okay? That's repulsive, it's repugnant, it's absolutely refutable. And then, of course, the polling as it relates to conspiracy theories, more specifically, assassination attempts. And the fact is, the majority believe that these assassination attempts are either staged or they're unsure that they're real. That's a pretty big deal. So again, Mr. Trump, Tyrant Trump, get used to it, because you traffic in conspiracy theories and you tout them. And so we, the American people, have the same right. On that note, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. A lot more to cover. Stay tuned. Hi, Tom Donahue for Truth Matters and Tom Donahue Reports. Have to issue an alert. I have a new website under construction. It's a work in progress. Part of the reasoning was that the basic site that I had were having issues getting in to do the editing, and I had my domain registration in another location, which complicated matters. So now I've got it all under one roof at WordPress, but the situation is I was able to transfer a lot of that information, but it's static on the new website. So if you were to try to click through to the archives or click on some of the TalkStream Live gadgets, those kind of things, you can just see them. You can read the material. And that site, when you had the redirect, it would take you to tomdonahuereports.yourwebsitespace.com. So that's still active, and you can click through there. At this time, it's tomdonahuereports.yourwebsitespace.com. Now, the new site that is where my domain is, which is tomdonahuereports.com, you won't be able to click through, but you can read and you can still gather information. But in the coming days and weeks, we hope to have it fully functional. So I don't want you to miss out on anything. It doesn't affect any of the podcast directories, doesn't affect the radio show, whether it's on the weekends, whether it be TalkStream Live, K-Star Talk Radio. All that is the same as usual. So again, I want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank you for visiting either of those or both of those websites. Bigger and better things are coming. And so I just wanted to give you this high alert, because you might get detoured or frustrated, and I wanted to give you the inside scoop. So that's it for the alert. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters, Tom Donahue Reports, and thank you again for your understanding and patience.
For nearly 250 years, Americans have enjoyed a level of civility and prosperity. Wicked globalist operatives threaten it all. And the chaos around us is the result of an underlying spiritual war. See through the deception and discover the root of the world's conflicts. A startling new book from the host of the Truth Seekers radio show, Soulless Society. Available on Amazon in softcover, Kindle ebook, and Audible. Visit www.soullesssocietybook.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
For every puppy purchased from a pet store or a breeder, a homeless dog at an animal shelter loses the chance of ever going for a romp in the park, chasing a ball, or feeling secure in a real home. Dogs and cats in shelters are waiting for someone kind to come along. So if you or anyone you know is ready for the responsibility of giving an animal a lifelong home full of patience, understanding, and respect, please adopt, don't shop. Visit PETA.org to learn more.
Welcome back, Tom Donahue. Truth matters. It really does. And speaking of that, let's talk about Kash Patel a little more. Now, at one point, he was doing Kash's Corner. Yeah. And he was a sidekick and was a fixture and a frequent contributor to Steve Bannon's War Room. Now, I knew there was kind of a weirdo in the pictures or surrounding the slob Steve Bannon, and Trump called him a slob before he kicked him to the curb in the first administration. So you have two pedophile protectors, one now the FBI director, the other Epstein's media mentor and coach, as it related to those videos found in the Epstein files, where Bannon was hoping to profit from these videos in circulation. He was working with, and I go into greater detail in a prior podcast and show so you can go back in time, but I covered this in detail, that Bannon did many, many hours of video interviewing, coaching. He was his mentor. He was his media promoter, and he was trying to reframe, recalibrate, reimage, make Epstein more palatable. So he was profiting as this mentor and coach, and they became allies and friends. Matter of fact, at one point, they wanted to unseat the Pope and other European leaders. So he was collaborating in a political sense, in a religious sense, strangely enough. And so Bannon had worked very closely also with Kash Patel. And what did Kash Patel do? Remember when he was doing these radio shows and podcasts, he was talking about upending the deep state, exposing it, and doing all that he could. And he gets in, and he's more concerned about binge drinking, partying, and playing, and of course passing out. So you have this strange alliance between Bannon, Epstein, and Kash Patel, and they both did all they could to cover up for Epstein's crimes. And when you look back at some of the background, like Kash Patel was in with a lot of conservative groups. He had a lot of allies. And one of those happened to be Steve Bannon, who was with Breitbart at one time. They kicked him to the curb. Trump kicked him to the curb. So this slob has a way of ingratiating and insinuating himself, but then people tire of him, or they learn who the real Bannon is, and the bum is booted. So you have Kash Patel that also worked with Tucker Carlson, and they did videos together. Now, when you look at this guy and you hear this guy, how do you not know he's a creep? Okay? How do you not know to not trust him? And now we know with absolute certainty to not trust him with anything in any way, shape, or form. So I just want to kind of touch a little bit more on the media background and his allies, Kash Patel. And one final thing I want to say before we go to break is that Kash Patel reminds you of one of those guys in college or in high school that's trying to fit in, that's trying to be the cool guy, and nobody's buying it. Everyone rejects him. He's just a creep, okay? And it's not just his look or his ethnicity. It's just he's just a creepy guy. So we're going to have to call him creepy. Okay, so we got Ben Shapiro is squeaky. Mark Levin is cranky. And now we have Kash Patel, who's creepy. Yeah. Okay, right back. Hold tight. More to come. Hi, Tom Donahue for Truth Matters and Tom Donahue Reports. Have to issue an alert. I have a new website under construction. It's a work in progress. Part of the reasoning was that the basic site that I had were having issues getting in to do the editing, and I had my domain registration in another location, which complicated matters. So now I've got it all under one roof at WordPress, but the situation is I was able to transfer a lot of that information, but it's static on the new website. So if you were to try to click through to the archives or click on some of the TalkStream Live gadgets, those kind of things, you can just see them. You can read the material. And that site, when you had the redirect, it would take you to tomdonahuereports.yourwebsitespace.com. So that's still active, and you can click through there. At this time, it's tomdonahuereports.yourwebsitespace.com. Now, the new site that is where my domain is, which is tomdonahuereports.com, you won't be able to click through, but you can read and you can still gather information. But in the coming days and weeks, we hope to have it fully functional. So I don't want you to miss out on anything. It doesn't affect any of the podcast directories, doesn't affect the radio show, whether it's on the weekends, whether it be TalkStream Live, K-Star Talk Radio. All that is the same as usual. So again, I want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank you for visiting either of those or both of those websites. Bigger and better things are coming. And so I just wanted to give you this high alert because you might get detoured or frustrated. And I wanted to give you the inside scoop. So that's it for the alert. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters, Tom Donahue Reports. And thank you again for your understanding and patience. We're back. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters, Constitutional Crusader, always putting America first, New World Order dead last. That's the way we roll here, and I have for decades. I want to focus on the now, and we have President Trump. He arrived in China. He met Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader, president of the Communist Party, and they still consider themselves communist. And based on reporting, the AP wire says that Trump offers platitudes while the Chinese, and I'll call him dictator, warns of possible confrontation during the China summit. The reporters were struck by Trump's body language, quote unquote, as he dotes on the China's president. Now, we've seen other United States presidents do similar things. with foreign leaders, in particular Putin. Trump always does, and with the Chinese leader. And Trump called him a very good friend, one of his best friends. Does that ring a bell? Does that, echo in a similar vein of Epstein, his very best friend for more than a decade? So this great friend and communist dictator, he loves these dictators, these strong men, and he really emulates, and that's what we're seeing here in America, is that he's becoming them, using them as the role models. They're his mentors, if you will, and he aspires, and he's coming close to being them. And if that offends someone, well, then there are plenty of other apologists and propagandists that are there on the airwaves for you, okay? Musk and Cook and other prominent U.S. executives were invited to join Trump on this trip to China. Now, remember, Biden was rightfully criticized for the deals that he and Hunter set up. And so why is this any different? That really is not. But I guess you could decipher or discern differently. But that's just my take, okay? Trump says that the Chinese president has offered to help broker the peace deal with Iran. What? I mean, we need China to broker peace deals to end wars? We go hat in hand to the Chinese? Really? Okay. So all this bravado and macho man Trump mystique is really a lot of hot air. It's non-existent. An article here talks about how U.S. and China seek to repair damage from the tariff war that sent trade into a freefall. Remember, Trump gave them more favorable treatment when it came to tariffs versus legitimate, true allies. So Trump has been bending the knee, kowtowing, bowing down to Putin and Xi all along. And he seems to be the happiest when he's among fellow dictators. And sorry, Tyrant Trump, Dictator Don, that's just the way I see it. So wow, what a world we live in, that your best friends are communists and pedophiles. I mean, really. I mean, this is really what we're dealing with here with Dictator Don or Tyrant Trump. And I am not going to relent. I am not going to give up. I am not going to stop my relentless assault on the Trump administration and Trump himself because of the damage that has been devastated on our nation and the betrayal. So he is treacherous. He is treasonous. It's traitor Trump, Tyrant Trump. And I know that I can lose some audience for saying those things, but I have to say what I believe. I call it like I see it. And typically, for the most part, most of my programs, if you look at what I have suggested, what I have shared, it is usually in alignment with the truth, and it normally pans out to be true. So on that note, we're going to take a brief break here. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters, time out, more to come. Hi, Tom Donahue for Truth Matters and Tom Donahue Reports. Have to issue an alert. I have a new website under construction. It's a work in progress. Part of the reasoning was that the basic site that I had were having issues getting in to do the editing, and I had my domain registration in another location, which complicated matters. So now I've got it all under one roof at WordPress, but the situation is I was able to transfer a lot of that information, but it's static on the new website. So if you were to try to click through to the archives or click on some of the TalkStream Live gadgets, those kind of things, you can just see them. You can read the material. And that site, when you had the redirect, it would take you to tomdonahuereports.yourwebsitespace.com. So that's still active, and you can click through there. At this time, it's tomdonahuereports.yourwebsitespace.com. Now, the new site that is where my domain is, which is tomdonahuereports.com, you won't be able to click through, but you can read and you can still gather information. But in the coming days and weeks, we hope to have it fully functional. So I don't want you to miss out on anything. It doesn't affect any of the podcast directories, doesn't affect the radio show, whether it's on the weekends, whether it be TalkStream Live, K-Star Talk Radio. All that is the same as usual. So again, I want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank you for visiting either of those or both of those websites. Bigger and better things are coming. And so I just wanted to give you this high alert because you might get detoured or frustrated. And I wanted to give you the inside scoop. So that's it for the alert. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters, Tom Donahue Reports. And thank you again for your understanding and patience. Welcome back, Tom Donahue. Truth Matters really does. And we're on the final stretch here, and we're going to try to go rapid fire through some other pertinent subjects and issues that truly matter. Now, I do want to touch on something ancillary to Trump's yielding, capitulating, conceding to the communist dictator with his trip to China. As I mentioned, the body language shows it all. And he did that with Putin. He dotes and defers. So he's yielding his power as president of the United States, as though China is the superpower and the super player in all this. Now, it's not just Trump that yields his power. We have Chinese infiltration throughout the United States. And there was an article that talked about a particular case in California. The mayor of Arcadia, Eileen Wang, admits to acting as a Chinese spy in a federal plea deal. Now, we know that former disgraced Representative Eric Swalwell was targeted by Chinese intelligence operative Christine Fang, also known as Fang Fang, and that she was working as a financial bundler for his re-election campaign. And there was also talk of a personal relationship with those surrounding Fang Fang. And now with what's come to light with Swalwell's sexual proclivities, it probably was much deeper than that. So there was an ethics probe, and it was closed following a 2-year review of the matter. But he was removed by Speaker McCarthy. He was stripped of his seat on the House Intelligence Committee. That's how serious it was viewed. So yes, the communist influence across both parties and throughout the United States. And we know that the Chinese have bought up a lot of property, including tremendous amounts of farmland here in the U.S. And we know that there are many financial contributors. And we know that even Steve Bannon was very involved with a Chinese tycoon. Whether they're political commentators, whether they're politicians, whether they're people, the corporate titans, there is a Chinese stranglehold and strong grip over our system of governance in this country and corporate and media influence. So I denounce it and detest it. An important link here is Kissinger and Associates. There was a time where Kissinger, when he opened up political and cultural and social interaction and relations with China, that businesses had to pay a fee and had to be cleared and go through Kissinger and Associates. What that is today, I don't know, because Kissinger has passed on. But Kissinger talking about strangleholds. You had to go through Kissinger to have those business ties and relationships and deals. So that's the way it was with Kissinger and his oversight of the Chinese. And if you really dig deeper into the New World Order and globalism, you will find that Rockefeller, Rothschild, Kissinger they were the gateway. They were the gatekeepers. They were the controllers and in bed with the communist dictators. Yeah. So both parties and those at the highest corporate, media, and political levels have been influenced and are intertwined with the Chinese. So that's my view and my take. Okay. Now I want to get back to another subject, and I'm going to be unrelenting as it relates to some of these media personalities, and that's what they are. It's show and tell. And one of those, as I brought up, is Ben Shapiro. And Ben Shapiro, I call him Squeaky because that's the way his voice sounds. And I've never been able to listen to more than a minute or two because it blows out my eardrums. It affects and infects me, and I have to resist at all costs. But anyway, Squeaky, a big article came out, New York Intelligencer, and in this article, the headline reads, and it was at the Drudge Report and various other media outlets that are willing and open to exposing Ben Shapiro. And it was entitled, Why Ben Shapiro's Media Empire is Collapsing. So I'm going to do a deeper dive when I have more time on Squeaky and his absolute abysmal showing as a media company. And it's imploding, major layoffs, many views and listens are way, way down. And there's reasons why Ben Shapiro and his media empire is in deep free fall and decline. A major media report came out that online streaming audio and podcast use is hit all-time new highs. So that's why if you're in this media game and in this mediascape and universe, you have to devote a certain amount of your media resources and time and effort in distribution, in streaming, and in podcast. And of course, I'm somewhat deficient as it relates to, video content and social media, but I might work on some of that. But nevertheless, audio is king to me, and that's where I'm most comfortable and most suited for. And that's going to always be front and center in my media plan. Speaking of plans, I'm running a 2-minute spot describing some of my website complications. And there is a footnote to what you may be hearing as I pre-record it. And that is that the WebStarts site that I had for my website, I thought that there was just some technical snafu and I couldn't get in to do the edits on my site. And I found out later that I would have to redo my entire site in order to access editing features. So it really was timely that I was making the transition anyway. So that site is still freestanding and it's still interactive and you can use it. But the new site, TomDonahueReports.com, so now I have my domain registration, which is a simpler, easier to use, TomDonahueReports.com, rather than the longer extensions, and the new website all housed in one spot, which is going to be much more accessible and easier to manage at WordPress. So TomDonahueReports.com. Now, the site right now is static, so you can read all the information, you can see everything, you can view everything. You just can't do click-throughs at the moment. But the old website, I'm going to maintain, keep that available. The URL for that is TomDonahueReports.yourwebsitespace.com. TomDonahueReports.yourwebsitespace.com. And I forgot to mention that when I was working more closely with Angeline with this initial project, we, through her, launched a website dedicated to Truth Matters, which that still is in existence, and that's truthmattersradio.net, truthmattersradio.net, which will give you all the essentials relating to this show. So you got 3 different sites besides what I do through TalkStream Live and that major platform. So just wanted to give you some updated information on how to reach out to me. It doesn't affect our radio stations, doesn't affect our streaming online stations. It doesn't affect all the major podcast platforms that we are listed. Continue receiving this show, this program, whether it be through radio, streaming, or podcasting as usual. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your listenership. Your support means so much. Here's something interesting that I wanted to share with you. And people are wondering, does Trump do all this social media posting on his own? Is he really that unhinged and crazy at night? Is he, because he's obviously not spending his time with his wife, so it seems, and so it's been reported. He's got this free time on his hands, and I guess he watches a certain amount of news, especially Fox News. Nevertheless, yes, there is an assistant that works directly with the president, giving him ideas, doing research on things he can post. So it's been acknowledged that this woman, which a lot of the White House insiders say they're furious at this mysterious aide enabling Trump's midnight social posting sprees. That story was, so actually it's in a lot of different publications. This happens to be from Raw Story. Another one from The Independent says, meet the woman reportedly behind some of Trump's biggest and most outrageous and controversial Truth Social rants. Now, the Wall Street Journal, their analysis states that in 8,800 times since 2025, including dozens of late-night bursts that spread conspiracy theories, personal attacks, and fringe content to his 12 million-plus followers. 8,800. Holy Toledo. I mean, that's a lot. But her name is Natalie Hart. She's Trump's executive assistant and plays a crucial and central role in the posting operation. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. She presents Trump with printed stacks of draft posts, often content recycled from other social media accounts, for his approval, then logs on and publishes them in batches, sometimes outside the normal working hours. The White House officials confirmed to the reporter's authors that Trump personally approves all content, though he also posts some messages himself. The arrangement has drawn internal friction, according to the report, and other aides have dubbed the human printer for carrying around these sheafs of material. Typically, he does not share these drafts with his chief of staff's office, communication aides, or national security. So that's pretty wild that he's got this young assistant that drums up and pulls together a lot of this material, but Trump is the one that approves it. He signs off on these things. So it's not some aide in isolation, and it's not Trump himself, because that would take a lot of time with all the posts he does. So I'm not faulting him for having someone assist him in his social media sprees, but this is like binge activity. I mean, this is like really deep dives into this realm of social chaos. So there's pictures that the Wall Street Journal and these other publications have picked up on this story and elaborated further with these mounds of papers, that are printed accompanying Trump or heading to, Trump's headquarters. Apparently she's been working for Trump since 2022. So apparently she was a speaker at the 2020 Republican National Convention, and he liked what he heard. And she's also a bone cancer survivor, to her credit, which is, great. I don't know any more than that she gave a good speech and that she's a conservative. And so I'm not faulting her for whatever her credentials may be, but Trump was impressed. Oh, here's another thing about her background that I just discovered. She did a stint as a host on OAN, One America's News network. And so Trump does, kind of monitor these conservative channels like Newsmax and OAN and Real America's News. And so Trump, I guess, found that there was an affinity in terms of mentality and in alignment with, his agenda and things he wants to accomplish. So, again, I don't see any fault with having someone like that, but the secrecy and this pipeline to him, and that's a lot of influence to potentially have on a president that this young woman has, that, but this is really an important thing for Trump. I mean, Trump sees this as his presidential obligation and duty to be like a social media czar, if you will. I mean, czar as in like his little empire, or emperor, the social media thing. Another thing, speaking of that, I was talking about Kash Patel cashing in, Mr. Creepy. I was unaware till just a few hours ago that Kash Patel was on the board at Truth Social. So he's been working around Trump before, besides the fact that Kash Patel was working with Bannon and working in these conservative circles. So I wanted to cover this. There's so much more that we could get to, but we're running out of time. I did want to mention that we're going to be working with a sponsor. It's a product line that you may have heard on other shows. I can tell you this, when I promote with my voice in a spot, it means that I'm using the product. It means that I totally embrace it. It means that I'm totally in favor of it. And that's Eden Pure. One of the ways that you're going to be able to support this program and support your health and a healthy lifestyle is by purchasing some of these incredible products. And I can tell you this from my own experience for more than 5 years. I didn't know that I would be working more directly with them. The only way that I would get credit for any purchases would be through, when we put this up on the website, you'll just click through and then it would monitor any sales. So when you see Eden Pure on TomDonahue.com, click on that and check out some of the products. I'm going to be voicing some spots, but I can tell you this product that I have had, and it's a small portable unit. It's a Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purification. And I'll tell you, this super oxygenated air that is generated, it just eliminates all the odors and the germs, and it's just phenomenal. I mean, if you cook with garlic or onions, or, you've got litter box like I do for my 2 cats, these smells can permeate, be pervasive, and not the best way. So this just wipes it right out. And so when I had an opportunity to perhaps work with them, I just realized that, man, I've been using this unit, and it's a small unit. I mean, they have bigger units. They have all kinds of products that I think you're going to really find exciting, and products that I want to try. Clean water, pure air, healthy diet. All these things matter to me. So when I make any suggestions or recommendations, it's because I believe in it. Okay. I can tell you from experience with many, many other hosts, you give them a script, they're going to say whatever the script says, as long as they have the potential to be paid on the spot or make money. I've never worked that way. I've turned down marketing offers, and were in my past were quite hefty, but I couldn't get behind something, and I couldn't say something if I didn't believe it. Anyway, that's truth matters. I mean, it does. And that's the way I operate here. And I think that it distinguishes me. And there's a few other hosts. I would operate the same way. But nevertheless, I just wanted to kind of start to introduce that. It's kind of a preview. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters. It really does matter. Have a good week.